Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings. And we're doing another Jessica Day George book as per last week because I felt like it. Which, this happens when you are just picking these books based on what you liked and what you wanted to read is you wind up picking books based on how you feel like. And in this case, I felt like this one. So, this is the first of a trilogy that Jessica Day George did based on some more Western, more English, French fairy tales. I'm not totally sure of whether the 12 Princesses is Perrault or not, but it feels very French. Anyways, so the 12 Dancing Princesses is a story that in the version that I initially saw, which was on a TV show umpty squillion years ago, which did live reenactments of various fairy tales, it was implied that the dancing princesses, and they only did 6, I think probably because they didn't want to have to hire another 6 actresses to play the other 6 princesses and make the whole script have to get spun out to give everybody lines. So they only had 6, but it was, a retelling of 12. And the story is basically just that you have these 12 princesses, and every night they go dancing somewhere mysterious that their father has no idea how they're going dancing, but basically every single night the king gets up in the morning to see that his daughters have worn through their dancing slippers and that they need more new dancing slippers. And it puzzles him and it concerns him because, even if you're a king with a kingly treasury in order to spend that kind of money, it still is going to start to add up, having 12 sets of dancing slippers being replaced every couple of days. And so the story that I had seen, and the story, by the way, popularly depicted in the Barbie movie of the same title, is that the princesses have just found a magical gateway and they go dancing every night because they want to spend time with handsome princes. In this version, it is not just that they want to spend time with handsome princes and the king has got to find himself somebody who can figure this out so they'll stop. This is actually a curse. Or rather, I wouldn't call it a curse. What it is the result of a deal with the metaphorical devil. It's very, very traditional for people in fairy tales to make deals with supernatural creatures, with fairy creatures, with the fae, with whatever you want to call them. And the thing about those deals is those are almost always to the detriment of the human, and that have very, very binding demands on them, demands that you cannot simply drop. You see this in Rumpelstiltskin, where the dwarf, or whatever the heck he is exactly, makes a deal that he will help the young woman pass all of these trials that the prince has set her in order to prove that she can spin straw into gold, which she can't, and her mother's a big liar, but, he's become convinced of it anyways. But the point is, he helps her do that, and in exchange, he gets her firstborn child, and years later, when she has her firstborn child, he shows up, and no, she can't just get out of it. They have to, within the rules of how fairy tales work, they have to find a way to get her out of this. So you have that. And it's very, very traditional that, that you cannot escape these. And so in this story, the princess's mother had made a deal with the king Underhill, who had ostensibly been trapped there by, mages centuries and centuries ago. And he's officially known as a very bad man, but the queen is desperate and kind of dumb. So she makes a deal with him that she will dance for him however many times, once a month or whatever it may be, in exchange for getting children. And the thing about this is, every time she misses a night, the king insists on her making it up and spending extra nights dancing to make it up to him. And years later, when her country winds up at war, she goes to him and asks him to guarantee her country victory. And he says, I will do this, but you'll have to dance for me more. And when she dies, having basically been worn out by having 12 daughters in very quick succession and having to dance every single night and not miss nights no matter how ill she gets, the debt passes on to her daughters, and all 12 of them have to dance. And the king starts to go a little bit nuts because his country has been at war for years, and the fact that his daughter's dancing slippers keep being worn out and so on, it's very, very concerning for him. And then his daughters fall ill, and things really start to get ugly when it becomes clear that the girls are not sneaking out somewhere because they want to. That, that they become ill with pneumonia, and yet they're still having to go out at night dancing. And that he keeps hearing his younger daughters sobbing that they don't want to go dancing again, they don't want to go to the ball. And it becomes very clear to him that whatever this is some sort of thing being forced on them. And so it makes this story at least somewhat different, because the other versions really do involve the girls saying, oh, this is our chance to go and have a great time and be away from the obligations of being princesses and to get handsome knights. And when the young soldier who eventually figures out how this all works figures out the mystery, that's more him succeeding at making sure that the king no longer has to spend that and having, won over the eldest daughter to want to marry him. It is not, as in this case, young Galen actually rescuing the sisters from the depredations of the king Underhill. But this one has a very, very dramatic climax of them barely escaping with their lives from the land Underhill and barely making it back safely. And there is, in fact, a sharp reminder of reality in this one, where a bishop shows up who is basically a witch hunter, and he spends much of the book basically accusing the sisters of witchcraft and putting the whole kingdom under interdict. For those of you who don't know, when a kingdom is put under interdict, within the context of Catholicism and the history of Catholicism, you had basically declared that these people in this kingdom were no longer allowed to get church rights. That is, priests were to stop giving church services, they were to stop giving christenings, they were to stop giving final rites to the dying. They would basically hold the entire kingdom hostage against getting into heaven. They were basically told, you're not allowed to do the Christian thing anymore. We are denying you this because we believe someone high up in your, society has done some terrible thing, And so we, the church, are denying you this. And it's something that, it's kind of a stopgap last measure that the church, would hopefully resist doing, but it's an incredible strong arm tactic to basically say the Pope has decided that the people of this country aren't going to be getting, like I said, their last rites. The children aren't going to be baptized. No weddings can be performed. All of these things grind to a halt. And this archbishop who shows up witch hunting puts the kingdom under interdict, which at the end of this book we find out that this was something he was not supposed to be doing. He's actually a bad man. But it's nonetheless something that it'd be very, very chilling and horrifying to anyone who was Catholic within a given country to be put under interdict. So this book gets actually fairly dark in places. It's still a YA novel. There's limited darkness. It's also a YA novel that is not going as dark as some of the darker things that became so popular for a while. This isn't a dystopia. This is a fairy tale. But it is true to how dark some fairy tales get. But in the end, our hero Galen rescues the princesses and stops the King Underhill, and there are 2 more books in the trilogy, but this is sort of the initial triumph that drives back the forces of darkness, so to speak. Anyway, it's a good read. It's fun. The characters are very interesting and delightful, and yeah. Like the last one, I can absolutely recommend it as long as you keep aware that this is a YA novel and not, serious, dark, grown-up literature with overly grown-up themes. But it's a good time. So, yeah, I think that's everything, and I will see you all next week.